And Fireball as well. We've got 3, 4, 5 cars off Schumacher. I can see Feller in there. Massive crash in the middle of the pack there. Surely the safety car is going to be deployed. Yes, it is. And massive drama here. Marco Wittmann leads. Lucas Auer second. Oh, Thomas Preining is one of them. His car is destroyed. His championship hangs now by a fine thread. And it had started so well for him on this restart after that 10-place grid penalty, and it's going to be a red flag. The race is going to come to a stop, and the cars all bail for the pit lane because there's too much damage, too much debris on the circuit. It's got to be a red flag. Well, I hope the drivers are all okay, because that was a big one. And as ever, the professional crew that look after the drivers in terms of the marshals and the medical team and the recovery team and the race control operatives will be absolutely on top of this to make sure everybody's okay. So 2 big incidents in that, separated by around about 20 seconds in the race. There's that first one which involved 3 or 4 cars in the first few corners of the restart, and then a massive one. Unbelievable sights as DTM cars obliterated as they ran into each other, and there wasn't a great deal left of Thomas Preining's Porsche, but it was fantastic to see that he was able to walk away and out of the car. So a drama-packed, incident-packed restart. Might be one of those races where it's just about getting through it and surviving. And look at that. It's the DTM engine that has become completely separate from the car. I would hazard a guess that that might well be the Porsche engine of Tommy Preining's car. Looking at the state we saw that in. Fluid leaks from it. Oh, I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that. Absolutely enormous impact that must have been. Ricardo Feller, we saw, was involved in that as well. He's got the car back to the pits. Everybody's in the pit lane that's still involved in this race, except for Maxi Götz and Dev Gore. They've parked up on the start-finish line and hobbling slightly there. That's Dennis Olsen, who, remember, had to start right at the back of the grid. So he is... I mean, he looks like he's winded and hobbling, but the great news is that he's got out of the car of his own volition, so it looks like he's largely okay as well, which is a huge relief. Damage to Michael Grenier's car as well, was involved in one of those incidents. But again, driver okay, back in the garage, but it looks like that might be his race now run. So some cars, including Lucas Stoltz, Lucas Auer and Maxi Buch, have parked up in the pit lane exit. Others have pulled in front of their garages, like René Rast and Kelvin van der Linde. We saw David Schumacher's Mercedes involved in that shunt as well. And he's missing some pretty useful components there as well at the front of the car. And there, Thomas Preining's Porsche. That's absolutely massive. I've never ever seen an engine departed from the bodywork of the car like that before, and there's all sorts of other pieces of bodywork strewn everywhere as well. Marco Wittmann also stayed out, so you can see him just cruising through, trying desperately not to pick up a puncture with all of this as well. So Dennis Olsen's Porsche looks like it's either missing a front left tyre or maybe even a front left wheel, and there's a lot of recovery work to be done here by the marshalling team. They're going to have to, once they've got the debris up, which will take a while, they're also going to have to sweep up the circuit because there's a lot of fluid that's been laid down from those engine components which have been absolutely obliterated. So thanks as ever to the marshalling team there, looking after the safety of the drivers and reacting really, really quickly to that. So it's been good to see Thomas Preining and also Dennis Olsen walking away from that. Everybody else back here, and there'll be a delay now, and that's great news as well. That's David Schumacher, who also looks okay, but has definitely been winded, and he just takes a breath there, tries to discuss with Tommy Preining what happened there. Well, let's try and unpick the pieces then. This then the restart. All eyes are on Marco Wittmann, look, going around the outside of Lucas Auer, and there David Schumacher already had one save, look, and he was involved in a fight there around the outside of Nico Muller, and then as he tried to straighten it up, found Rolf Eischen's Lamborghini alongside him. Schumacher did carry on though, and I think we'll get probably a better look at it from this angle. Just look at the midfield. Maxi Boot got delayed. Sheldon van der Linde was right behind the incident again and just carried the speed around the outside. Philip Eng got caught up in all of that as well. And then it was Marius Zug in the Attempto Audi with its new American football livery for the weekend that was also involved in that. That's Eng's car in the background being battered left, right and centre, and there from that angle you can see smoke and dust everywhere, bits of bodywork flying off. Here's Marco Wittmann going in the foreground around the outside, Sheldon van der Linde around the outside to avoid the carnage. Damage to the front left of Rolf Finishing, and got then a second hit from Marius Sugg, who was just trying to avoid him really, and then Michael Grenier hit the back of him as well, so he got two hits there, and they were just trying to avoid each other, but it was little time, little room to react to all of that. Schumacher actually got through all of that and ended up behind Sheldon van der Linde in the number 27 Mercedes. So he got himself up to 7th place. It's Eng that got completely sideways just behind. And there, that was the second impact. Marius Sugg was just trying to avoid the Lamborghini, but he just couldn't find a way through. And that's where the massive hit happened. Well, that was not the end of it, because we had then this huge drama later on in the lap. And while that was going on, Lucas Auer trying to stay on the track. Marco Wittmann failing to do so, but going around the outside of him. There's another replay from a different angle. There you can see the front left is broken or off in Eichen's car. He's no control over that car. Marius Sugg spears into him, trying to avoid him on the grass, and then Michael Grenier's Mercedes whacks into the back of the already broken Lamborghini. And then look, there is the big incident. It was between Schumacher and Preining. Cars at a huge high speed there. Destroyed. The fireball actually came from the Porsche of Dennis Olsen as it. Secondary to that was trying to avoid the incident, hit the inside of the barrier coming through into turns 8. And Ricardo Feller into Olsen. So actually it was two separate incidents there. All happened at exactly the same time, but Ricardo Feller clipped the back of Dennis Olsen as just in front of him, this massive shunt between Preining and Schumacher. And then Maxi Boot got tangled up in that as well, Nick Cassidy as well, but bits of Porsche absolutely everywhere. And again, credit to the design and the strength of these cars and the safety of these cars that the drivers have been able to get out of that, because that was an horrendous looking crash. Or crash is. And then the fireball as the engine and the fuel tank took the impact on Dennis Olsen's Porsche. Michael Grenier and Maro Engel watching the replays of that. Here's a replay. Oh, Nick Cassidy there took a hit from Dennis Olsen as he hit the barriers and then came back into the Ferrari.
Track, I think.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
One engine hit me in the door. One engine hit me in the door.
Yeah, one engine on the floor.
Are you okay? No, my hand is fucked.
Well, apologies for the language there, but you can understand it given the severity of that incident. So Schumacher trying to come around Preining then from his point of view there into the concrete wall, and then got a second hit as the car speared onto the circuit from Ricardo Feller, who'd already been involved in the incident with Olsen just behind as well. Two didn't fit into one. And you see Preining there took his hands off the wheel to avoid, when the wheel spins around like that, when it hits the wall or a barrier, it just spins around and around and around. That's when you can break your thumbs. So the drivers are trained to release the steering wheel straight away as soon as they know they're heading for the wall. And he was a passenger from there on in. Absolutely huge shunt that. Or shunts. And there, the fireball coming from Dennis Olsen's car. And Dennis Olsen's engine, as it ends up completely separate from the car on the track. So it wasn't Preining's engine, but it was a Porsche engine, and that's good to see. The drivers just giving each other a hug and saying, oh, we've done well to get out of that, because that was a massive one. Preining, you remember from Spa when he had that contact with Lucas Auer going up Eau Rouge, took a deep breath after that. It was like, that was nearly a really big one. I'm pleased to get out of that. I'll live with me for a while, but that one, well, that was even worse. It's great news that the drivers are all okay. Well, it's something that in 20 plus years of commentary, I've never seen an engine completely separated from the car before and on the circuit like that. That is unbelievable. And there's a lot of clearing up work to be done there. And a huge gratitude once again to the marshals for all of their work. Like, they're already sweeping up the debris, already dealing with the fluid and the oil and the water from the radiators that's been left on the circuit. Oh dear, but we have to say is, you know, is there any chance that any of these cars, particularly Preining and Olsen, are even going to have a chance of being out tomorrow? And well, I don't know, I'm not an engineer, but looking at it, I would be really surprised. And what a hugely shocking and disappointing way to end the championship charge for Thomas Preining, who's been absolutely brilliant this year, as has the team. Well, the driver's out of the car, or cars, which, as you'd expect, they've got the signal that we are going to have quite a delay.